Ridiculous questions.
Meticulously debated.
This is Tell Me I'm Wrong.
Well, I was happy just last night. I've been losing sight. Citing all the falling fights. What is this if this ain't right? Back again, the monster rights. Losing life until that night. Life never let him lie. Light is my far past his way.
Hello, and welcome to the first and final TMIW Presidential Debate. I'm Josh Ballard of TMIW News, and I thank you for joining us today. I will be moderating a debate between the two candidates for TMIW President, the American Party for Americans nominee, Joseph Robinson, and the Tupperware Party nominee, Ryan Story. The Debate Commission has designed the format, and we will cover a range of topics affecting listeners of TMIW the most. Each candidate will be limited to 1 minute for their answer to my prompts, followed by open discussion. None of the questions were shared with the candidates before the event, and both campaigns have agreed to our rules that we expect each candidate to respect today. Now, with the business out of the way, I would like to jump into our first segment and a policy matter that is important to TMIW listeners everywhere: food and beverage. Applebee's has been a mainstay in our neighborhood since the 1980s, serving food and fun to families across this great nation. However, it has come under fire in recent years for declining quality and the addition of the sin against God and man known as the quesadilla burger. Mr. Story, you have proposed eliminating Applebee's, while your opponent, Mr. Robinson, has set out a detailed plan for comprehensive Applebee's reform. Why would closing Applebee's solve this problem facing our country? You have 1 minute to state your case.
First of all, I would just like to thank our moderator and our host this evening, the Town Hall of Winnipesaukee.
Suck up.
Thank you very much for that question. We have seen unprecedented strife in our communities this year and over the past few years with this administration. We need a cause that can really bring us all together. And we, as the Tupperware Party, believe that that cause is abolishing Applebee's. Millennials across this nation have just been shuddering at the fact that Applebee's still exists and that the food that they present is slightly below that of the Hungry Man microwave type. I believe that as we are able to move more towards local establishments and revitalize these locally owned and developed businesses, that we will be able to thrive. We will be able to create new jobs that will continue to help those who are investing in these communities, not these large chains that tend to just
Has it been a minute yet? This is going on and on.
Sir, Mr. Robinson, you have your moment. Thank you, Mr. Story.
Not if he takes them all.
Mr. Robinson, your campaign has agreed to the parameters of tonight's debate, and I would ask that you allow Mr. Story to finish his thought. However, we will turn to you for this very same question. Mr. Robinson, why would your reform plan for Applebee's be a better route for this struggling chain?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. And I think it's unfair for Ryan to pick out that group when there are a lot of restaurants out there that fit the memo he has. I mean, have you ever heard of O'Charlie's? You ever heard of TGI Fridays or some other restaurant like that? I'm here to help create jobs. I'm here to help create opportunity. I don't want to build. I don't want to take away. I want to build. I want to grow. I'm here to help Applebee's. We'll give them a stimulus. We'll teach them how to cook without a microwave. We'll do what we got to do. But by God, I'm here to make it better. I'm here to make it great.
Now, opponents of your plan specifically point to your microwave talking point as particularly divisive. citing that will affect the timeliness of the food arriving to the table. After all, people are there for their 2 for $20 meals. They're not there for an extended evening. They have a movie to get to, a family function to arrive at.
There's steak with shrimp on top.
Absolutely. How would you address those concerns of your critics for this plan?
Well, I like to say Applebee's is an all-encompassing experience. They got great drink prices. They got the perfect martini, the perfect margarita. They are there to give you. So who doesn't want to spend that little extra time, have a drink with your wife, or have a nice appetizer with your family and enjoy eating good in the neighborhood? Because that's what America's about. Get to know your neighborhood. Get to know your community. Ryan just wants to tear your community apart. Sir, I did not interrupt you. I appreciate it. You did not interrupt me.
Gentlemen, let's calm down here. I will concede.
I would like a response.
Yes, sir. Specifically focusing on the alcoholic beverages that Mr. Robinson outlined, you have been a significant critic of the $1 LIT, citing that it is just not healthy for this country and for its people. Could you please speak to your concerns related to that promotion?
Well, in my younger years, I definitely would call the LIT a regret in a glass. So I think pricing those at $1 is really just irresponsible, and just lends itself to the fact that this organization has really seen better days. They are catering to a crowd that is just not ready to invest in these communities like we are. And I want to go back to what Mr. Robinson said about eating good in the neighborhood. That has been their slogan for a long time, and I do believe it is misleading because these establishments know nothing about the neighborhoods that they are placed in. Most of them are not in neighborhoods. They're in standalone or strip malls, and they are just in the locations where they are not able to reinvest in these neighborhoods like those local restaurants that are really building up these communities. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Sticking to the subject of beverages, I'd like to turn our focus to another key issue in this campaign, which is soda fountain policy. Mr. Robinson, you have detailed a set of sweeping policy changes as it relates to soda fountains. Chief among them is the requirement for all restaurants, movie theaters, stadiums, and gas stations to offer both Mountain Dew and Dr. Pepper, regardless of if they do business exclusively with Pepsi or Coca-Cola. The CEO of Pepsi recently called your recommendations a win for citizens everywhere, a statement that comes as no surprise given Pepsi's ownership of Mountain Dew in partnership with Dr. Pepper. Meanwhile, the Coca-Cola CEO recently referred to your plan as unhinged and quote-unquote extremist in nature, before citing how you have accepted massive campaign contributions from Big Pepsi. Mr. Robinson, how do you plan on bringing both of these parties to the table to find a deal? And if passed, how, in your opinion, will this positively impact the everyday lives of TMIW listeners? You have 1 minute.
First off, I'd like to say that that's fake news. That's the radical North propaganda. They've been after me from the start. I just got off the phone with the CEO of Coke. We played golf last week. It was great. All I'm saying is you got the 23 original flavors. You got bold taste in Mountain Dew. You'd be hard-pressed to find a great person in this country that doesn't say, yeah, I like one of those. I'd like to have one of them. And I never said Coke would not be able to have their product. I never said Pepsi would not be able to have their product. Technically, Dr. Pepper is an independent company. It already works with Coke. It already works with Pepsi. All I'm doing is introducing the wonderful, refreshing lemon-lime taste of Mountain Dew into these things. And who doesn't want to have that refreshing jolt when you're parched, when you're thirsty? So I would say to Coke, use this as an opportunity to grow your business. Use this as an opportunity. Someone comes from Mountain Dew. They say, you know what? What's that cherry Coke? Maybe I'll try that. Hey, what's Pib Extra? Maybe I'll give that a try instead of Mountain Dew. I'm driving business to you. Pepsi, this is your opportunity to up your game. People may not want to go to you anymore. If they can get these at a Coke machine, they may just go to that. Improve your flavors. Improve your ability. Improve your stance in the world. That's all I got to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Now, I will point out that you noted that Dr. Pepper is an independent company, and while we are not in the business of fact-checking our candidates during the debate, I would like to point out that Dr. Pepper does indeed have a partnership with Pepsi, and I think that is important for TMIW listeners to understand. Now, turning our attention to Mr. Story, on the other side of this issue, you have expressed your desire to maintain a free soda market that is unregulated by the government. Why do you feel that this is the best approach to take, despite polling showing that TMIW listeners do indeed want to see Mountain Dew and Dr. Pepper widely available? You have 1 minute.
I think all of this comes down to just the fact that this stance from the American for Americans Party, it just shows their bias towards the big money and the people who are putting the money in their pockets. Do we really want to restrict the choice of these businesses and force them to have a partnership with a company like Pepsi specifically, or with Dr. Pepper if they do not choose that? Maybe they are looking to really look at some craft beverages, or maybe they're looking to look at only beverages that are made in the state, or maybe they are looking at some other priorities. Do we really want to restrict them, to make them have this choice when maybe that's not part of the vibe that they are cultivating in this restaurant? The other thing I would like to point out is that the American for Americans is often touted as the party of freedom, but this does not sound like freedom to me. This sounds like they are pushing this as a policy that will help them to have more money in their pockets because they are getting money from Big Pepsi.
Thank you,
they are
Mr.
getting
Story.
money from these lobbyists.
Thank you, Mr. Story. Your time has come up. Now, you were on the issue of big soda money. We noted that Mr. Robinson has been seen as being in the pockets of Big Pepsi specifically. Mr. Robinson, would you like to address the accusations that your opponent just leveled against you of accepting big soda money?
Well, if that's what he wants to go with, and he wants to say that I'm all for freedom, well, yes, I do believe you should have freedom of choice. I'm trying to give people the choice. I actually just had my fact checkers look it up. Dr. Pepper is technically owned by Snapple and Keurig. It is not part of Pepsi. It is not part of Coke. Therefore, it has no allegiance to either one of them. So it is an independent third-party soda distribution company that distributes and bottles all its own soda and or drinks by itself. Therefore, it has no allegiance to either company. So therefore, any allegiance to PepsiCo would have nothing to do here. Do I like Mountain Dew?
Except for Mountain Dew.
Sir, if you let me finish my statement, I would gladly answer the question.
Mr. Robinson, I think this is important for the listeners to understand. Well, yes, they are an independent company. They do have a partnership with Pepsi. And so what I'm curious about is, are you suggesting that we should break up Big Soda?
By no means am I suggesting we should break up Big Soda. They work for what they had. Therefore, they should be able to enjoy what they have. I also find it very funny that Mr. Ryan over here said that Mr. Story, that Pepsi was big money. I don't know about you all, but I'm pretty sure that the outfit of Coke is a pretty big organization with a very far reach.
I'm not comparing the two.
I said if you will let me finish,
you will have your
response.
Yes, sir.
It's not your
turn. You will have your response.
You said that you support the big money of Pepsi. Well, let me tell you, buddy, Coke has big money too. And I dare say if we look them up, they're probably pretty close to each other. All I'm here is, you had your stupid little Applebee's comment, which is dumb. I mean, who doesn't like to eat good in the neighborhood and have some buffalo wings and quesadilla burger? I just want to give people the choice, and that's where I'm going for on this. You should have the opportunity to choose.
Mr. Story, you have 1 minute to respond.
If you'd like the opportunity to choose, then allow the restaurants to choose what they would like to represent. You are contradicting yourself right there. And second, I was never comparing Pepsi to Coke. I was simply stating that you are trying to push Pepsi because of your partnership with the money that you've been getting from Pepsi. It's going to benefit yourself. Continually just campaigning for things that will benefit only yourself.
So you're saying the restaurants have a right to choose when the Coca-Cola and or Pepsi company comes in and sells the rights to them? That's their choice, or they're going to take the highest bidder no matter their choice? Which one do you think they're going to go with? Do you think they're going to go with the money?
That is the choice of the business.
Do you think they're going to go with the money?
That is the choice of the business. They should be able to choose. If they want to choose based on money,
if they want to choose based on money, then that's fine.
Reclaiming the moderator's time. Gentlemen, we have agreed that we would keep this debate civil. I know that this is a hot button issue, Yes, we did, sir. This is a particular hot button issue for the TMIW listeners as well as your campaigns.
I just think that people need to know the truth.
Mr. Story. To wrap up our time on soda fountain policy, I did want to ask one more question for you all, specifically related to small craft beverages. Both of you hail from the state of Kentucky, a state that has a proud lineage of local sodas, including L81 and Ski, as well as a number of other sodas throughout the country that have been beloved within their regions. Particularly in your area, L81 cannot be found on many soda fountains due to these exact issues that we are discussing. Could you please give us a brief explanation of your policy towards small craft beverages and how you will help them succeed in this marketplace?
Moderator, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Story, please.
I think that the key to this type of development in our communities is partnership. And I believe that as part of our platform, we will be able to develop statewide partnerships between companies like L81 and the Skis of the world, that they would be able to work with these other local restaurants and they would mutually benefit. That is why the Abolish Applebee's platform also benefits in this type of area, because we are looking at local restaurants that would benefit not only from having this unique soda and craft beverage that locals will appreciate, but also that they would be helping a local company. And I believe that we are the party that will be able to bring that.
Thank you, Mr. Story. Mr. Robinson?
I will agree with part of what you said. I do think it's important to help. I do have a question for you. What is your problem with Applebee's? Are you getting money from O'Charlie's, Texas Roadhouse, Logan's,
Absolutely
TGI
not.
Fridays? How will we know? You only want to attack this one nice restaurant with these wonderful people who are just trying to grow their business and make money for their family. I think it's important,
Mr. Robinson.
I think it's important,
gentlemen.
Important, sir. I think it's important to support small business, to help small business grow, and I think it's important to give them the avenue and the means to get that distribution, to maybe help them partner with, find some local companies that will help them distribute that cola in a way that best sees fit. I'm a big fan of L81. Personally, it's better from the bottle. I'll just be honest. So therefore, it may be better for their business, better for their company to stick to mainly bottling. Maybe look at distributing bottles to restaurants. That could be a big deal. Who goes to Cracker Barrel and gets the root beer? It's great because it's from the bottle.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Thank you. All fine points around. I know this is an issue that we can...
Charlie's big money.
Sir, this is a topic we could obviously spend a lot of time on, but there are other topics that are important to the listeners of the podcast. So now we will be moving on to our next segment, which is domestic policy. As we begin our conversation on domestic policy, I want to shift our focus to the days of the week and the never-ending passage of time. Mr. Robinson, you have made banning daylight savings time a key campaign issue. You even said in a recent interview that you don't like it when it gets dark before leaving work because it is quote-unquote scary. Opponents of your plan, including your opponent, say that they enjoy the earlier hours of nighttime because it gives them an excuse to curl up on their couch and cure what ails them with Netflix and wine. However, polling shows a vast majority of undecided voters have not made up their mind on this issue. So why should they trust your plan? Mr. Robinson, you have 1 minute.
Jimmy, how'd that get out? I'm scared. Jimmy, you're out of here, bud. Okay, sir, I'm ready to answer your question. Thank you for asking that. That's a great question. I'm going to be honest. If you look at why daylight savings time was created, that was for the farming industry, which is the backbone of the country. But now with modern technology, when it comes to tractors, when it comes to everything else, the time they spend, they're able to get much done much faster. Personally, I think it improves the nation of America, the state of Kentucky, however you want to see fit, by not doing the daylight saving times. You get more time in the day to work because you do not spring for or fall back and create that extra hour of darkness in the evening. And it is safer in the morning. That's going to cut down on automobile accidents. That's going to cut down on possible insurance rates going up. It's going to cut down on jobs that aren't able to work outside in the dark, like construction. By doing all this, giving the daylight in the morning, it's less scary, safer, and a much better environment. There is no reason at this time in 2020 we are still suffering from daylight savings time. What purpose does it serve us at this point? I'm trying to unify the country as a whole because for some reason only certain states follow that.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Well, if you wouldn't interrupt me, I'd be able to finish.
Excuse you, sir. Mr. Story, you now have 1 minute to reply with your plan as it pertains to daylight savings time.
I am a fan of daylight savings time, and that is because I am a fan of science. I'm not sure where Mr. Robinson and his party are getting their data, but according to our sources and our scientific data that we always follow, he is simply trading the short-term negative effects that happens in the fall and in the spring for the long-term positives that have been proven by simply shifting our schedule so that we are aligned more with the amount of sunlight that is in the sky during the day. It is not only positive health effects, but also mental health effects. And I believe that seasonal affect disorder is becoming especially prevalent these days.
Thank you, sir.
And I think
that is your time. We appreciate that. Speaking to this topic, it appears to many of the voters, based on our research, that your choices on this campaign relating to this issue really come around to kind of how they impact you personally. Mr. Robinson, I would like you to address those rumors of the dark being scary, and just if you would provide the voters a brief explanation of what exactly you find scary about the dark.
Well, I do think that's propaganda that's been said about me from the radical north that is ungrounded and just mean is what it is. It's just mean. They like to pick on me about that. I would not say I'm scared. I'd like to think that I'm more prepared when it's daylight outside. I can see better. It's safer. People can't sneak up on you. It's just an overall better environment. So I think it's only fair that people understand that. It's not a scary thing. I mean, I go to bed at night when it's dark. I sleep in the dark. That's fine. I just like to be safe when I'm out and about. Therefore, I do think it's better when it's daylight in the morning as opposed to dark.
Thank you, sir.
I'm not sure if Mr. Robinson is aware, but daylight savings time will actually give more daylight during the hours that we are awake instead of less.
Well, it depends on, okay, so what you're saying is the only people that matter work an 8 to 5 jobs. So like me, who goes to bed leaves work at 6:20, I'm screwed because it's daylight earlier and it's daylight later in the day and earlier in the evening. Is that what you're saying to people who work service jobs or who work at hospitals?
Gentlemen,
like
let's not attack each other. Gentlemen.
I'm not saying that at all.
You're alienating entire people because they're trying to serve the greater good.
I have one follow-up regarding personal preferences. Mr. Story, there have been rumors going around that, you enjoy your wine and Netflix in the evening, specifically to cure what ails you when it gets dark in the evening. There have been some rumors, mainly peddled by your competitor, that you've been enjoying Emily in Paris multiple times. Can you please address those rumors?
I'm not sure how he would even have that data. I believe that
so you're not denying it. You're not denying it.
Anything that I am watching in my home is my personal and private information, as I believe he should respect that information for all Americans, not only his opponent.
Thank you. Now moving on to another hot button issue relating to TMIW pod listeners, and that is Homeland Security. Over the course of the last year, TMIW listeners have been horrified by the emergence of a looming threat to our national security, known as Proto-Grover. The creature has been operating in the shadows of TMIW and has gone unchecked by those in power. How would your administration confront what has become known as the GLEEP phenomenon, and what can we do to stop this creature? Mr. Robinson, you have 1 minute.
I think this creature is it shows the build of an overall systemic society that is growing and building into some terrible, terrible things that could radically affect our country. I think it's important for us to not only stop what it is now, but determine what the real issue is, to boil down what created Proto-Grover, what caused Proto-Grover. We have to attack that issue. It's a national security issue at this point. It's not something we could just gloss over and fix. We have to figure out what truly is the root cause and attack it from there.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Story, your response.
I think Mr. Robinson and I actually agree on at least one of those points. I do believe that this is a national security issue. And we at the Tupperware Party have a 3-step plan that I'd like to outline. Number 1, education. I think that people need to know about what Proto-Grover is. I think that by listening to episode 11, Tickle Me Josh of the TMIW, that they will learn as much as they need to know about Proto-Grover. Number 2, where is the paper trail? Where is Proto-Grover really from? Why is he always hiding where he is coming from? We need to see the birth certificate. Number 3, we would hold Grover accountable. He has not been held accountable for the many, many, many mistakes that he makes frequently and televised, and we will finally put Proto-Grover on the stand and hold him accountable for the things that he has done. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Story, I would like to follow up on one point relating specifically to your policy towards the Muppets, and that is your campaign's accusations and threats to lock the count up. This seems to be an issue that doesn't affect many TMIW listeners. However, you've been steadfast in your suggestion that this should happen. Could you please respond to those concerns of our constituents and also explain to them why you want to put the beloved Count in prison?
I will say at this time, this is an ongoing FBI investigation. So there's only so many details that I can reveal. I can say that the Count is involved in a number of high interest groups and that we have been investigating for some time. And there have been some details that have emerged in the past few months that have made him a person of interest, and I'm afraid that's all I can say. I've probably already said too much, but we will continue to bring justice to the Muppets that deserve it.
Now, Mr. Story's campaign against the Count has come under fire by many because they point to your opponent, Mr. Robinson's close relationship with the Count. He mentioned earlier that he was golfing with the CEO of Coca-Cola just last week, a golfing trip that also featured the likes of Brian Littrell of the Backstreet Boys, as well as the beloved puppet, the Count. Obviously, the Count is unable to participate in the golf game due to his limited use of one of his appendages. However, he did join the party. Mr. Robinson, would you like to discuss your relationship with the Count and explain how your opponent's moves to, quote-unquote, lock that puppet up have been purely out of spite towards your campaign against him?
Well, you know, the Count and I, we go way back. We grew up with each other. Well, I grew up with him as he was already older, but he's been there for me a lot in my life. And, you know, he's a good guy. He took care of me when I had some rough times, and I walked him through some tough times myself. But basically what I'm saying is, he's a good guy. He's unfairly, he's kind of profiled because of what he is what it boils down to. He's unfairly judged immediately when you see him, and that's only if you can't even see him in a mirror. So if you look at him, it's really going to freak you out. But I just think it's fair. I think it's his agenda is what it is propaganda. He's trying to target me to go after my friends because he knows he's going to get beat, and he's just worried about it, and he's doing whatever he can. It's sad is what it really is.
Mr. Story, do you have any response to the allegations of your opponent?
I'm afraid that I have said all I can say about the Count. I cannot speak to the relationship that they have or any of the golf outings that they continue to find themselves on. But I will say that he continues to be a person of interest, and the truth will out.
He can't say anything because no one invites him on golf outings.
Gentlemen. That was a low blow, Mr. Robinson. We have agreed prior to the debate that you all would be civil and treat each other with respect. I would ask that you respect your opponent during this debate. Now we will turn to another issue that has been affecting the larger TMIW population, and that is related to diplomatic relations with foreign nations. Now, nuclear proliferation has been a key talking point for many decades. However, it has recently come into focus due to the continued escalation and tension between the United States and the Wizarding School of Hogwarts. If elected TMIW president, how would you utilize diplomacy to ease the threat of these two institutions? Mr. Story, you have 1 minute.
I think that the main thing that we need to do is we need to create a diplomatic relationship. We've always had a special relationship with the United Kingdom, and it seems that they have hid this school from us for quite some time. And I believe that it's time that we share in that wizarding knowledge that they have claimed to be the best at. So why have they been hiding that from us? I think that the escalation is something that is unnecessary. I don't think nuking Hogwarts is really something that we need to do. My opponent may disagree, but I believe that a glad-handed relationship would be the way to go. I believe that I believe his name is Dumbledore. I believe he would be very accepting of any relationship that we might extend.
Thank you, Mr. Story. Mr. Robinson, your response to the prompt.
Well, I don't appreciate those allegations of saying I would nuke. I was actually told by some other people who there's a good chance they were part of the Tupperware party that the Hogwarts was going to be nuked. I was a firm believer that Hogwarts was good people. And Dumbledore, yeah, we're old friends. We went golfing a couple weeks ago. I've already been in talks with Dumbledore and Hagrid. We're going to send some of our guys over into Hogwarts for special training. They're in a 6-week course, special training, get them all worked out. We're going to start up a plan here in the States. It's going to create lots of jobs, create lots of futures for a lot of people.
Mr. Robinson, I would like to step in because this does appear to be breaking news to listener TMIW.
I was about to say, I think this is new information.
Mr. Story, Mr. Robinson, it appears that you are suggesting that TMIW would arm and train Hogwarts in a fight against the United States. Is that what you are claiming on this debate stage?
Not at all. I'm claiming that the United States and Hogwarts is going to form a partnership and utilize both of their strengths and weaknesses to grow. We're going to help them with some funding issues they may have to help grow their campus, improve their campus, hire some new teachers. Not that pink lady, but the other ones are great. And they're going to help us do some training to help with our national security. And we're just going to go to build symbiotic relationship. It's going to be good for both sides. We're going to go ahead and we're going to kick butt for Hogwarts, and Hogwarts is going to kick butt for us.
Mr. Story, do you have any response to what your opponent has just said?
My main question would actually be directly to Mr. Robinson.
I'm the only other one here, so it's got to be to me.
Where exactly is he going to be getting this funding that he is referring to? I'm not exactly sure. We are in a massive deficit as TMIW. I'm not sure exactly where this funding is going to be coming from. So I would just like to see if he has an answer to that.
Well, if you listen to what I said it was going to be part of a defense contract. So some of the funding is going to come from the defense budget.
Oh, so they're going to pay for the wall, right?
Hogwarts already has a wall. If you knew anything else about Hogwarts, you would already know that question. You should probably research some of these studies before you come to the debate, sir. This is really embarrassing on your part.
Sir. I appreciate your passion and your candor. However, once again, we have...
Is he for real?
Sir, we have said we would be respectful.
Will you shut up, man?
Mr. Story, that is out of line.
That was very rude.
Okay, well,
talk to him.
Gentlemen, at this point, I believe it is best for us to take a brief break so that we can get things kind of cooled down here in the debate hall. So we will be taking a break to the moderator's office, and when we return, we will have a final segment focusing on personal records as well as a final statement from each candidate.
Everybody, we are sponsored once again by Device Pit Stop. This is a local place owned by local people. They are really great for the community. And honestly, the guy who owns it has been a friend of all of ours for a long time. He's one of the best people that I know. I have had a couple of experiences with Device Pit Stop. I have sold a couple of phones there. I think I've actually bought a couple of accessories there as well. And it could not be simpler, could not be easier. You can go in there, go into their store. You can also go into their website, devicepitstopky.com. They are now offering a completely online store where you can see great pictures of what the technology is. You can actually buy online as well. well. If you're looking to maybe get some extra cash at this time, I know it can be a little bit rough for everybody. So if you have some extra, old phones hanging around, or maybe an old computer that you're not using anymore, go ahead and take it to Device Pit Stop. They're going to give you a really reasonable offer. And if you're trying to upgrade, they will also offer you in-store credit that is probably going to be more than the cash offer, so that you can upgrade for some new technology as well. So make sure you go and check out devicepitstopky.com. You can also use our promo code TMIW, and you'll be able to get 10% off your purchase. Thank you so much to Device Pit Stop and all the people over there for their sponsorship on the show.
Welcome back to the 2020 TMIW Presidential Debate. Once again, I am your moderator, Josh Ballard, and we are joined by the Tupperware Party nominee, Mr. Ryan Story, and the nominee of the APA, Mr. Joseph Robinson. Now, we would like to continue our debate in a civil manner, as we focus on our... Sir? As we focus on our candidates' records as well as issues that specifically relate to the podcast. Now, for our first question, we fielded this one from listeners of the show. There have been many concerns over the emergence and the subsequent removal of the original moderator's office bit that the members of this podcast performed prior to having advertisements on the show. Some referred to it as confusing. Some referred to it as too much fun. However, there has been some consternation over its removal. Mr. Story, I'll ask you first. Would you address the concerns of listeners that you all are no longer having fun because you have eliminated this bit from the show in favor of ads that benefit yourself?
First, I would like to say that at the beginning of any podcast, the hosts are just trying to find their feet. And so I hope that we would be accepted with grace in the fact that we were just scrambling to figure out what we were doing. That, and also we continue to have an amazing time recording this podcast. That was some of the small moments of us really just getting creative. To be honest, I'm really glad that we don't have to come up with a moderator's bit anymore. So I would say I'm even having more fun now that we have actual advertisers on the show. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson, your response to those concerns of your listeners?
It was a concern. It was something that we started in the beginning that we thought we were really going to enjoy, and it was fun. But much like everything else in the society, we worked at trying to improve ourselves, trying to better ourselves. We tried something, and it just didn't work. So we backed up, we punted, and we went with something different. But I applaud my team. I applaud the group for going out, putting ourselves out there and trying something. Was it fun? Yes. Was it hard? Yes. But I'm glad we did. We learned from it. We grew from it, and we will continue to grow from it. Therefore, I think it was a vital part to tell me I'm wrong in the beginning, and it helped build us into what we are today.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Now turning to some more divisive issues that have come up about your personal records during this campaign. First, Mr. Story. Critics of yours have suggested that it is not appropriate for you to hold office due to some missteps in your personal life, including your love affair with horses. However, most concerning is your restrictions on not allowing your wife, Leah, to participate in the podcast. An issue you have stated numerous times that you would be fixing within the next, quote-unquote, 2 weeks. Have you made any progress in this area, and can you promise our listeners that you will reverse course and welcome Leah onto our show? You have 1 minute.
First, I want to say my wife is welcome on this show anytime that she would like to participate in a debate. She is more intelligent than me, more creative than me, and also funnier than me. So
that's one thing we'll agree on.
So I believe, thank you, Mr. Robinson. I believe that we will have her on very soon, and I will continue to espouse that as well. What was the other question? I'm sorry, moderator.
It was specifically related to your love affair with horses.
Yes, thank you. I believe that my appreciation of horses is completely healthy, and I have nothing to apologize for. I have many horses at my home in Kentucky, and I will not apologize for that. I think that they are beautiful animals and that they represent the best of what we hope to be.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Your opponent has repeatedly attacked your linguistic abilities and asked you to submit to a phonics test before tonight's debate, a request which you refused and referred to as quote-unquote astatine. Your campaign manager, also known as your current wife Rachel, defended you by saying you are quote-unquote just trying your best. What is your response to these attacks by Mr. Story? You have 1 minute.
I think it was absolutely unfair for him to ask that. I mean, that's insulting and demeaning, and he has no right. I will say, am I the sharpest tool in the box? Am I the best speaker in the world? No. But I'm here. I'm here to be a person that works for you and works hard for you. And I want to say I'm real. You asked him a question about his affection for horses, and he would refuse to answer it. He said it was healthy. If that's healthy, then that's sick. I think that what comes across in this debate and what comes across from me, you hear the real Joe. I don't always say the right thing. I don't always do the right thing, but I always feel like at the end I'm a good guy. And therefore, I stand by that. Now, my current wife is, like he said, much smarter, much funnier, and much better than I am. And she's right. I do try really hard. I want to be the best that I can. But sometimes I say the things wrong. So it was asinine that he asked me to do that. But you know what? That's okay. That just shows the man he is and that he's nervous. I stand by who I am, and I'm proud of who I is.
Mr. Story, do you have any response to Mr. Robinson calling you nervous?
I have struggled with anxiety for most of my life, and a lot of that stems from some things that have come about in the Count case. I think that it is unfair to attack a person for their intelligence. That was actually not my call. That was part of my team. So I personally apologize for that. I would never attack a person's character like that, like you just attacked myself.
Thank you, gentlemen, for somehow managing to keep that relatively civil. I appreciate that. Now, as we close out our debate, this is a topic that has truly been one of the most anger-inducing on this podcast. It led to much debate previously. However, I think it is important that we address this right here and right now. So our final question this evening before closing statements, and perhaps the most important question of all tonight, is what makes a candidate for president of TMIW Pod sexy? Mr. Story, you're up first.
I think I have been misquoted in the past in my discussions of sexiness. I think that sexiness the sex appeal of a candidate can be very important. I think that comes from a holistic view. And again, I think I've been misconstrued in the past. But I think that the intelligence of a candidate, the eloquence of a candidate, and possibly even the stunning good looks of the candidate can really come into play for the sexiness. I also think that their competence might be something that would be really sexy. I think right now our world needs some sexy competence. So I think that I represent that sexiness very well. I think humility is overrated. And so I like to represent myself as well as I possibly can.
Thank you, Mr. Story. Now, I far be it from the moderator of a debate as important as this one to editorialize from my seat. However, it does sound as though you are factoring in personality and intelligence as part of sexiness. Did I gather that correctly? Because I believe someone...
If you want to open this can of worms,
Excuse you, sir. I believe... another debater on that episode, perhaps the person who is moderating this very important debate, said the exact same thing.
I have been misconstrued in the past, and I believe that I have been misunderstood.
Let the man finish what he's saying so we can move on.
Thank you, Mr. Rob.
Misunderstood and misconstrued, and I want to make sure that my views are represented correctly.
Well, I appreciate you clarifying that and rewriting history. Precedent was set at the time that intelligence and personality were apparently not a part of sexiness.
This attack by the moderator on a candidate is unprecedented and uncalled for, and you should be removed from your position.
Your fascination with prosecuting or removing people who go against you, such as the Count and myself, is truly disgusting. However, we will move on, and I will allow Mr. Robinson to answer the same question. Mr. Robinson, what makes a candidate for TMIW Pod sexy?
I tell you what's not sexy. Whining when you get called out. Not sexy.
Sir,
to me, when it comes down to sexy...
We have remained civil in the back half of the podcast. Please continue that way.
it is sex appeal. What do you find sexy? And it's in the eye of the beholder. What you find sexy is what's different from what I find sexy. When it comes to a sexy candidate, and someone say it's not a sexy pick, whatever. I think it comes down to someone that you relate to, someone that you understand, someone that you find engaging and you find to have a symbiotic relationship with. Someone that you can say, hey, that person's like me, that person, he's a man of the people. He's a man. He's a friend. He's a family man. Hey, he's a good looking dude while he's at it. Yeah, you got to be a good looking person to have sex appeal. No one walks up and goes, man, that person is ugly, but they are sexy. That's not how it works. I think the biggest thing when it comes to sex appeal of candidates is how can he relate to me? How can he understand what I'm going through? And what can he do to better my life? Because that's really what you're looking for when you're looking for sexy. Is what can I make better? Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Now, I will point out, however, I will not attack you the way that I may have our previous candidate, something that the network executives have asked me to apologize for. So I would like to apologize on behalf of TMIW News for editorializing from my position. Now, Mr. Robinson, it does appear that you took a similar position to Mr. Story, something that this moderator does take into account. However, we will move on and I will no longer discuss my personal views from this stage.
Thank you, moderator.
I would like to point out one more thing. I tell you what, one thing is not sexy, and that is a soul.
Sir,
a soul is not sexy. Sir, and I think Mr. Story would agree with that.
You are attacking the moderator, which is also not acceptable in this debate format.
Are you supposed to talk this much?
Sir, I am
aren't the candidates supposed to talk?
Excuse you.
Who is this for? Who is this for is what the really good question is. I think the American people want to hear from the people they're voting for, not some dude.
Is this the Josh Ballard podcast?
This is, sirs, we have remained civil up to this point, and I would like to keep it that way.
You were not civil to me.
We have, but you are dominating this conversation.
Okay. I will take a step back here as we go into our final comment and allow you to have a full minute uninterrupted by myself or another candidate to explain to the TMIW listeners why you are the candidate they should vote for. We will start with Mr. Story.
As the Tupperware party, I want to represent your hopes and not your fears. I want us to be able to move forward, to be able to be proud to call ourselves TMIW. Be proud to say that I am a listener of this show. I believe that we, by abolishing Applebee's, by keeping daylight savings time, by holding Grover accountable, all of these things that we've discussed, I believe that we are the party that will be able to bring us back, to bring us up, and to help us to grow as a podcast. My opponent would like to scare you and would like to belittle me and say that I'm nervous, say that I have an obsession with horses that is perfectly healthy. And I believe that he represents not you, but he represents those who help him and not us. So come and join us, be a part of the Tupperware party, and you will be a part of something great.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Robinson, your closing comment.
I'm going to come out from behind the counter because I want to speak directly to the people of America. We've talked a lot about tonight in this debate. We've talked about Applebee's. We've talked about soda. We've talked about Hogwarts. We've been all over the place. Horses, men who like horses in weird ways. I'm here to tell you why I think I'd be a good candidate for you. I think I'm a good candidate because I'm a man of the people, and not just some people who only like local restaurants or people who only think we should drink local soda. I am a man of all the people. I'm a friend with count. Yes, I am. Is he the best guy in the world? Probably not. But you know what? He's been good to me. He's been good to my family. So he's my friend. I'm not going to abandon him just because something bad happened. I am here as a person to work hard for you every day. I don't want to go home and watch Emily in Paris 15 times and waste my time. I'm here to work from morning, noon, and night. It doesn't matter what savings time we're in. I'm here to work. And the last thing I want to say to you is when you go vote, who do you want to vote for? You want to vote for someone who's won some, or do you want to vote for someone who wins all the time? That's right. When it comes to TMIW, I am the reigning champ. I am a winner, and I'm here to win for this election.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Well, on behalf of the Debate Commission and TMIW Pod News, I would like to thank you for joining us this evening for our debate between Mr. Ryan Story of the Tupperware Party and Mr. Joseph Robinson of the APA. The voters at TMIW have an important choice to come, and we would encourage you to visit TMIW Pod on social media to cast your vote in this important election. You can also go to www.tmiwpod.com to learn more about our candidates and their platforms, as well as resources on how you can safely and securely vote. We would also like to take some time to thank Isle of 8 for our theme song, Jean Jacket. Please continue to share the show with your friends, inviting them to enjoy this podcast. However, if you encourage them to listen to this episode, we would like to provide you with a disclaimer that they take some time to educate themselves on the back catalog so that they can better understand the issues that were debated today here on this stage. We would also like to take a moment to thank our sponsor for this episode, Device Pit Stop. You can learn more about them by visiting www.devicepitstopky.com and using the promo code TMIW when you check out for 10% off. As always, there's only one winner, but we're all losers. Later, losers.
I'm Joe Robinson. I approve this message.